So I stopped drinking alcohol on November 18th of 2018. I was in the gym 1 month later, almost to the day. In my first 30 days, I lost 20 pounds. And that's just your body just responding to daily fitness and exercise. It was that quick. It slows down a little bit as you're losing more and more weight. And I got down to about 217 within a year. But the thing is I got skinny, which to me was like, this is really cool until I got there. And I was like, this isn't how I want to look. Like, I want to look big. And then that was the whole next level of learning nutrition and so on.
What's up, my friend? You matter. Your role as a father is critical, and you are so important. 3 nuggets that hit me from my conversation with my friend Bryan today are: 1, when you are disciplined, your influence and your confidence skyrocket. 2, the world sells hopelessness in so many areas, and they're a lie. And number 3, you can position yourself to be the man you want to be. Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview incredible fathers, gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our own craft. I'm your guide, Ned Shout, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 11 to 18, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 20th year of marriage. So yeah, my friends, I'm in the thick of it. I'm in this with you, and I'm working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world through the way we embrace our fatherhood role. And this episode is brought to you by the Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of the father is to serve, guide, provide, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is my new friend, Bryan Crow. Man, one of my favorite conversations. Truly grateful knowing there are men like Bryan waking up every day and going out into the world to make real impact. Enjoy being inspired by my friend, Bryan. What's up, my friends? Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. Super pumped to be hanging with my new friend, Bryan Crow. Bryan, what's up? Welcome to the podcast.
Ned, thanks for having me, man. Thank you so much. It's going to be a blast. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, dude. How you feeling today?
Good. It's, I think we're almost midweek. It's been a grind so far, but, we're on the way up the hill. It's going to be a good week.
Love it. Bryan, how old do you find yourself today?
Well, I am legally, I'm 37 years old. My last blood panel said I was about 22 years old. So that's what I'm going to go with.
There you go. Okay. Love it. We're going to get into that. Bryan, how many years you been married?
13 years. My wonderful and very patient wife, Beth, has been by my side every step of the way. And she's my anchor, 100%.
Love it. And then how many kiddos do you have?
I got 3. My oldest is Isaac. He's 8. And then I have a 6-year-old, William. We call him Bill. And then I got a little baby girl. Her name's Rosie. She's 3 years old.
Oh, Rosie. That's sweet. How old is Bill?
Bill's 6.
6. Okay. It just seems so badass to have a 6-year-old named Bill. Like, what a man, right? Does he have a beard or not yet?
No, well, he's the 6-year-old that would have a beard. He has a 6-pack. He's a rumbler. Like, he's one of those guys,
Yeah, like Bill's the only thing that works for him.
Yeah.
Okay, I dig it. And then where do you guys reside as a family? Where do you guys do life?
Yeah, so we're currently just outside of Eugene, Oregon, home of the Oregon Ducks football team. So we're out here in the Pacific Northwest, but we're going to be making the dive to Texas here in the next month or 2.
Wild, bro. Just up and move.
100%,
okay.
Man.
Cool. We'll talk about it. So funny enough is I'm going to be in Eugene. I'm pretty pumped. It's been crazy though. So my daughter is going to the Nike Invitational to run track.
Yes.
And like everywhere to rent was freaking crazy expensive. It was going to be like $4 or $5 grand just for like a few days. So luckily my wife figured that out yesterday. Thank God for that. So yeah. Okay. So Eugene, moving to Texas. I'm sure we'll get into it. Now, so here's an interesting question, and I didn't know the answer to this until we just got on the podcast. But typically I ask dudes what they do for a living. I hate the question, but like it because makes fatherhood a level playing field, right? Like most dudes ask each other, what do you do so I could decide if like I make more than you or my job's cooler? Like, I don't know. But whether you're, making $500,000 and you own your, company, or you're swinging a hammer or whatever you do, we're both going to have a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old and a heartbreak and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So with that being said, you're having a shift right now. Why don't you give us like the minute breakdown of what you do for a living?
Yeah. So the 60-second countdown would be, for the last 16 years, I've been in business operations through a couple of organizations, most recently a nonprofit by the name of Goodwill Industries, working in donated goods. And I have very recently, in fact, today was my last day with Goodwill, accepted a position with Rise Up Kings. So I'll be joining the team. I'm pumped. Like, I can't even tell you, man, like my heart beat in my chest right when I said that, like I'm very excited for this opportunity and to jump in with that group, and just see what the Lord does. Like every step of the way through this entire process in changing careers and moving and all that stuff we'll dive into, God's just like kicking down doors. It's been awesome.
Killer. Yeah. Wild. So you had your first Rise of Kings event, whatever, a month ago, probably not even a month ago. And then now you're going to work there. And I mean, my quick story, I went to the very first Ruck event in 2020 and then was just kind of, I don't know, maybe reluctant to things, this, that, or the other. But I went and served at an event, I don't know, a couple months back. And I was like, yo, I need to get more involved with this. So I started April 1st as like a part-time consulting creative, doing some things. So I'll be seeing you on those Monday team meetings.
So good.
So, dude, I have a bunch of questions around fatherhood, but I just need to bring the audience in right now to like why you and I are having this conversation. So I'm going to lead it like this. How tall are you?
6'6".
6'6". How much do you weigh?
Right now, probably 225, 230.
And then what would you say your body fat percentage is?
Probably sub 10.
Sub 10. Okay, so I ask these questions. Why would I ask these questions? I'm at this Rise Up Kings event, and this dude, Bryan, rolls up. So you got a beard. You're for those who are just listening, bald, 6'6", like a big ass strong, like I don't want to mess with you, dude. And you come by the Ruck Fitness booth and we're talking, and I'm sitting in a chair, and I don't know, whatever. I'm like listening to you. You're talking to Seth, and you're like, oh yeah, I used to weigh 300 pounds. I lost 100 pounds. And apparently I said it like a shocking dick, but I'm like, shut your mouth or something like that. And I'm like, shut your mouth. But it probably came out like sounding like I said, shut your effing mouth, like that kind of aggro style. And here's why, right? Like as I've gone down this fitness journey, dude, you could take somebody who's an elite business, family, spiritual, whatever, and throw them into a 75 hard or a 90-day whatever, and they freaking can't do it. They I mean, when you step into health and fitness and feeding your mouth, it is hard. So when I hear somebody go, I lost 100 pounds, you go, there's a discipline, a level, a mental ninja that's there, right? So just kind of break it down for us, because the idea that I'm 30% body fat dad who needs to lose 20 pounds and I can't do it is just utter horseshit. And so tell me about your experience, what got you there, and how you're looking like a mean freaking beast today.
Man, such a good question. Such a good point to it. I know that, for guys in their 30s, every once in a while there's a sense of hopelessness when it comes to fitness, and I think our culture almost echoes that. You always hear like, wait till you're 30, wait till you're 40, wait, and it's like that's a lie. Like, just for anybody that might be hearing that on a consistent basis, that's not real. So, I was super good at drinking beer for a long time. I had very little discipline around food. I was an athlete in high school. I played basketball pretty much year round my entire life. Had some knee injuries and just man, I fell off the wagon, and pretty hard too. I think I was 215 my senior year in high school. And
Whoa.
within 10
Okay.
years, I was 300 plus.
Wow.
So, one day it changed. And honestly, it just came down to, I had tried to do a lot of individual fitness, try to work out on
Mhm.
my own a lot. I
Mhm.
try to eat on my own a lot and like figure out this diet thing. I'm just going to eat salads. I'm just going to eat meat. I'm just going to, whatever it is. And sustainability wasn't there. And I'll tell you what, like, we're not meant to go into stuff alone. As men, like, we need a group, like we need a team. And so I
Yep.
found a group fitness. Like, I found a gym that people work out together and they push each other and they encourage each other. And it was awful. Like, it was a grind.
Mm.
But there was
Awful in a good
also
way.
like awful in a good way. Like, like you'll do a workout and it'll just absolutely sit you on the ground, but then there's someone
Mhm.
there to pick you up. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, that's
Yeah.
the stuff. And so I found a very good group of people. I found a very good gym. And then once I started working out, I didn't want my workouts to be wasted. So I wasn't eating
Mhm.
bad. I was like, okay, I got to figure out this food thing. I hired a nutritionist. I had her make me a meal plan. I started learning macros,
Yep.
and she really opened up my mind to, hey, I can, like, I can build the motor as big as I want to, but if I'm not putting the right fuel in it, it's not going to run right,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when the two of them started clicking, it was, man, 10 pounds a month. That were
Wow.
falling off of me.
Crushing.
Oh, it's just
And
insane.
when you say you have the two components working, you're
Yeah.
talking macros and then the fitness. So
Yeah.
fuel and gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let me ask this: were
yeah,
you 5 hours a day in the gym, 7 days a week?
no way. I
Okay, yeah.
was,
So what was that like?
I was 45 minutes of hard workout, 15 minutes of stretching,
Yep.
45 minutes of hard workout. And then done. I would run, maybe 2 or 3 days a week,
Some
outside
extra
of those
cardio.
workouts.
Uh-huh.
But really I was doing, I'd say 4 to 5 days a week, nothing crazy, like really 45 minutes, but grinding it out,
Yeah, for sure. You're breaking a sweat. You're hitting it
Yep.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
Nasty workouts. But still, I just want people to soak that in. You're sleeping for 7 hours a night,
Yeah.
roughly, right?
Yep.
So you're talking about you're doing 7 nights a week, 7 hours a night, 49 hours a week sleeping to recover your body, or whatever. And then you're talking about 7 hours a week in the gym,
Yeah.
right? So gym time becomes kind of easy once you stop being a little bitch.
Yep.
Sorry, I just get so fired up, and I want guys to be like, I want them to walk up to a circle and a dude look up at them and go, shut your mouth. Like, you are awesome. You know what I mean? And
I
it
do.
doesn't take a whole lot to do that. So, okay, so then the food component though, like
Yeah.
that, how did you wrestle with that? Because that is, dude, it's like, especially as Christian men,
Yeah.
if we're not, sleeping around, we're not overly drinking, we're not overly drugging or whatever, overly drugging, whatever you want to call that. We're not overly doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
So food is kind of this area, like, just don't touch my comfort around food. So talk to me about your wrestling with that.
Yeah. So, man, food is like, I think a lot of people paint food as the lesser evil. Like, well, I'm not doing all that other stuff. I just eat whatever I want to, that's my little escape. And I don't think the Bible tells me I shouldn't, like, but the reality is, we are called to be disciplined. Like, that is something that we're called to be. And so for me, I knew what foods were really affecting me. And I'll just be really legit with you. I took almost 2 years off of dairy because it would just tear me up. I knew it. Like, I knew it. I knew it for years. And I really cut down on bread, unless it was like homemade bread. And I love bread. But
So
I just said, I'm just going to push these things out. I'm going to really focus on meats and vegetables. And I did a lot of potatoes. I did a lot of rice. And then I was fortunate enough to live in an area where I could do a lot of hunting and fishing and kind of incorporate that into my diet. And it was easy. It's so easy to eat right. It
Mhm.
just takes discipline. Like it's really, those foods are readily available. It's not hard to find. They're very easy to cook. Like salt pretty much is the only seasoning you need, and it's good stuff, but
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
get to like kind of, you don't get to dabble in the pastries and all that stuff, at least for the season when you're in that
For
discipline.
sure. For sure. What talk to me about a hard moment. Okay, so how long did it take you? When did this start and how long did it take you?
Yeah. So I started, so I stopped drinking alcohol on November 18th of 2018. I was in the gym 1 month later, almost to the day.
Hmm.
Um, after in my first 30 days, I lost 20 pounds.
Wow.
And that's just your body just responding to daily fitness and exercise. It was that quick.
Yeah.
Then, it's almost like a bell curve. It slows down a little bit as you're losing more and more weight, which is how it should be. And I got down to about 217 within a year. So,
Wow. Wow.
yeah, so it started to go pretty quick. But the thing is I got skinny, which to me was like, this is really cool until I got there. And I was like, this isn't how I want to look. Like, I want to look big. And
Mm-hmm.
then that was the whole next level of
Yeah,
learning
yeah, yeah.
nutrition and so on.
And it's so funny because like somebody in the deficit does not want to hear you freaking talk about that at all. They just want to punch you in the face.
Yeah.
But like I've been trying to, my goal is to gain 10 pounds right now. I'm
Yeah.
180.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I'm at 2,700 calories almost. My macros, 250 grams of protein, 100 grams of fat, and then whatever
Crushing
my
it.
carbs are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I cannot break 180. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it almost becomes even like I'm eating 4 yogurts or 3 yogurts before I go to bed, and I'm crushing, whatever. But so for you, what's the goal now? Like, where are you at now? So it's been it's been 4 years, 4.5 years. So one is what's your goal now? And then two, how have you made it sustainable, right? Like this wasn't and nothing against 75 hard, great, great buy-in to changing your life. But how are you almost 5 years in and still where you're at?
Yeah. Great question. So I'll answer that one first. So what I've figured out is that I need variety, and variety comes with the seasons. And so I have to be able to be willing to bulk during, which is very convenient because I bulk during October, November, December. So
Beautiful.
I'm bulking during turkey season, and don't get me wrong, I'm still disciplined. I'm not slamming desserts and stuff, but I'm eating 3,500, 4,000 calories plus a day as I'm going through those 3 months, but I'm lifting heavy, and I'm really pushing myself on that side of it. And then I start to do a transition 3 months in. I'll start to transition into a lot more power movements. And my gym is set up this way, which is beautiful, but start doing a lot more power movements, start working my calories down. And then by the time I'm hitting May, June, I'm doing some cardio. I'm doing a lot more explosive movements, and I'm cutting my calories and my macros down, and really just trying to lean out for summertime. And usually I get to a place where I'm like, I'm really proud. I really love this. But then I know the season has to turn again. I have to be willing to go back into that bulk and gain the weight. So my goal right now is like, I want to get as big as I can with maintaining my explosive movement. Like I want to be able to run a sub 6 mile, and I want to be able to, be in the Rogue 1,000-pound club. Like that would be like a really cool mark for me on my wall.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So I'm going to ask one other component around the fitness nutrition piece, and then I want to shift into the impact it's had on family. So you brought up that you were an excellent beer drinker, and that was probably a bit of, you said you had some knee injuries, some injuries, and so that maybe was a big part of your 20s. What shifted for you? Do you still drink today?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so cold turkey, I'm done with this. You said you quit in 2018 and a month later you're in the gym.
Yeah.
Why did you stop drinking?
Well, I was
To whatever you want to answer.
good. I'll say it. I was really good at it. I was really good at drinking, which sounds silly to say, which means I was really bad at it. I couldn't just have a beer. I'd have a 6-pack a night or whatever it might be. And I'm a big guy. It wasn't like I was getting sloppy, but it was habit.
Yeah.
And really, it was me being passive. It was me not wanting to deal with all the stuff in life that's going on. Man, we get there too. We all get there. But I had just gotten to the place where it was like, I needed to escape. And this seemed like the easiest thing. It's been in my family for years. It was just like, this is what we do. This is what my group of friends does. It was habit. But man, the Lord really worked on me. And I had to get to a place where I was willing to give it up before he was willing to take it from me. And I think that's really important. Like I had to get to a place where I was like, Father, I'll be done with this. And I really will. My heart is going to surrender this to you, but I also need you to take it. And he did. And he 100% did. And so I woke up one morning and felt like the Lord had impressed upon my heart that alcohol wasn't going to be something in my life anymore. And I actually kept it a secret because I didn't want to let anybody down. Like I didn't want to tell people like, hey, I think God's going to take alcohol from me. And then 6 months later be the same knucklehead I was. So like I just kind of kept it really private. And through time, God fulfilled it. Like every single time God fulfilled it. And then my wife noticed, and then my friends noticed. And, I had young kids at that point, and it was like my engagement changed, and it was quite the cultural shift.
Was alcohol a barrier, or did it create barriers between you and your wife?
100%. Yeah. And I'll just be really vulnerable with you. My wife feels like she lost some of the best years of our life because of the decisions that I was making. We were young and in love, and we still are, but like we were in that phase where it was like, you're in your 20s, you're having your adventures, you're doing that stuff. And I wasn't always mentally, spiritually present for her the way I should have been early in our marriage because of it.
Yeah. This idea or thoughts kind of come into my mind around, like we were created to belong. We were created to be a part of community. And I know like drinking is such a central part. I mean, I'll drink every now and again, a couple times a month, probably. And it is such a central part to like people kind of connecting. I don't want to say that's how it is kind of meant to be. Right. Yeah. And our culture is maybe overly obsessed with it, right? Probably does more negative than positive. I don't know. That's not really the point. Here's the point of my question. I want your feedback on it. You went from this, I belong, we expect it, we do this together, to shifting into something else. And so how much do you think that fitness and nutrition and building community in this like whole other mindset, like I don't want to drink because I don't want it to mess up my protein synthesis, right? Like there's other reasons why people might not drink as much in the gym. So my question to you is, if somebody is wanting to step away from their community aspect of drinking, how important do you think it is for them to find another community that can provide a belonging to?
Yeah. I think it's incredibly important. Like, I think going back to my original statement just around fitness, like as men, we are made to be supporting each other. We're made to be in groups, taking care of each other. So if you're finding that at the bar, that's where you're going to crave to be. You know what I'm saying? If you're finding that at the gym, that's where you're going to crave to be. And so it was a really, I won't say easy transition because it wasn't, but it was a very organic transition from finding a place with my buddies, drinking beer, shooting the wind, kind of having that organic experience to help clear my mind and process all the stuff we go through as guys, to doing the same thing in the gym, and having really the same experience other than the outcome was much different, like,
Yeah.
I was still getting to escape, but in a very healthy way. And that's what the gym is for me now, man. I go hammer it out. I might throw some music in. I might listen to a podcast. I might just hang out with some friends and lift heavy, but like I turn off everything else. And I
Yeah.
don't know that that's a bad thing when it's scheduled and you create the time for it, and it's more of a healthy decision.
Yeah. When you come home from a heavy hour at the gym versus a heavy hour drinking, you kind of show up as probably a different husband and father.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah, for
100%.
sure. With that being said, I think fitness can be a very selfish endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just go open Instagram for 2 seconds. Uh, for you, how over the last 4 years has fitness become spiritual? Like, how you connect faith and fitness together? How has it shifted your relationship with you as a man, with your spirit, and with God, if any of that resonates with you?
Yeah, well, it so much does. So, and I'll be honest, as your body starts to transform, as a guy, you can get pretty proud of it. You get pretty proud of how you look, and uh, I've battled with that like anyone has, but you have to remember that, and at least I try to do this. You have to remember that God created you to be perfect. And if you're not
Mm,
perfect in any way, those are decisions that you're making because God made you to be
mm,
perfect. So
that's good.
maybe we start to change change the decision process a little bit, and see
Mm,
how that goes for you. So I really try to take it back to, is this serving the Lord? Am I serving the Lord with this? And there's parts of fitness that I've had to step back from, things that maybe weren't the best use of my time. When I'm really getting into it, I probably want to spend 2 hours in the gym, just really focusing and taking my time. That's not possible as a father of three and a husband and a full-time employee. Like that's not always feasible, but, I try to make sure that I'm intentional about, hey, I'm here to serve the Lord. Like no matter what I'm doing, that's really what it all comes back to. And this isn't about me. This makes me feel good. I know this is who I'm called to be.
yeah, it's
But at the
good.
same time, this needs to serve God, or it's not worth anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love the way you answered it, because it's like you could still tell there's a little bit of wrestling, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's kind of the point of our time here on this earth, right? Like, am I wrestling with the meaning of being myself? Am I wrestling
Yeah.
with God? Am I wrestling? And if we can wrestle, uh, in a healthy way,
Yeah.
right, and be open about it, then how amazing! Because like I'm 40, you're 37, we are becoming like we're just always going to be becoming these
Yeah.
men, these perfect men that God designed us to be.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm gonna ask this, and then okay, what do you think the role of the father is? How would you describe the role of the father?
Oh man. I'd say a loving guide and a fierce protector.
Oof,
That's
fierce.
that's
That's a
always
good word.
that's who I want to be as a dad. I want to be that, like, I want my children to see the very loving, very soft side of their father.
Mm,
Um, and I want to be able to guide them in sense through life with that type of engagement. Hey, don't do that. I don't want to see you hurt. I love you.
mm-hmm,
Anyone that stands against my children will see a much different side of me,
mm,
a much more direct side of me. And I want to be equipped for both. And I want to know when to turn either on or off. And I think for fathers, we can get those two backwards sometimes. We can be
oof,
very fearful, very fear instilling with our children, and somehow have this tender touch towards the world. And I've been there. I'm only saying that because like I've been in a place where I'm like, oh, that what came out of me there.
wow,
And
yeah,
so I really try to be intentional. Like within the last year, I've really tried to be like, hey, loving guide to my kids, fierce protector in any situation, no matter what it is. And that doesn't mean anger, by the way. That means being willing to step into a very difficult situation, no matter what it is, and have a sober mind and heart to walk through that.
bro. The way you answer that is incredible. I mean, dads, how many of us just feel a conviction right now that we can be so soft with those at work, like, oh,
Yeah.
Susie, I
Yeah.
understand, whatever, and then go home and Bill freaking leaves the light on and we lose our mind,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
And
Totally.
it's because we've got it backwards. So, Bryan, I mean, if us dads could just make that shift,
Yeah.
the world would look different.
Yeah.
Two other words you used that I just kind of lit me up was that you want to be a fierce protector,
Mm.
right? My kids see me as like this soft, cuddly, playful. I think playful is such a great word with
Yeah.
our
Love
kids.
it. Mm-hmm.
But then also like, yo, don't cross us
Yep.
in front of my dad.
That's right.
And then the words you used, because here's what I really want us to lean in, because we could kind of get the bravado of like we all love the scene in Bad Boys 2 where like the boy picks up the daughter,
Yeah.
and Martin and Will Smith. Yeah, it's beautiful. But
Yeah.
we could act like badasses if that were to arise. But the words you use, that if us dads could key into this, would just level us up as men, as the way we see ourselves, our wife and our kids, is direct. I want to be direct.
Yeah.
If something's happening, can I be direct without being mean, without being ego, without being an a-hole?
Yeah.
And we want that, but not many of us are doing that. And let me ask you this, and I don't want to say it's because you're 6'6" and your physique, but what has you taking control of your health and fitness shifted your ability to A, be on the playful side, and B, be on the direct side? And if so, how?
Yeah. So, I mean, mentally, it's a huge shift because I feel confident to step into a situation, and I think this is important for men. I feel confident that if a brother of mine went down on a hunting trip or something, I could get him out. I feel like if someone decided to step up to one of my kids and address them inappropriately, I could step in and handle the situation. If someone wanted to do that with my wife, I think about that and I feel equipped. I feel like I've equipped myself to be able to handle that stuff.
Ooh,
So
that was
there's a certain level of confidence that comes with that. I think the other side of it is that the Lord's really taught me that being calm really has authority on people. Like when I step into a situation and I'm not that raging lunatic that's punching his steering wheel or hopping out of his car, like when I can be calm and someone is maybe losing their cool with me and I can address the situation, like that's what authority is. That's when you can step into that appointment of authority and say, hey, I'm going to be cool in this situation, but this is what's going on. Like, this is how this is going to go. And since I've been practicing that, it really works. It really works when you're willing to just be like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but this is how we're going to walk through this one. So it's practice, man, because I want to lose my stuff too. If someone rises against us or our family, like that instinct, and it's fear, by the way, that fear inside of us that gets kicked off is like, oh, I want to respond with so much aggression, but that's not where it's at.
Man, I gotta tell you, I do a lot of podcasts, and I do them with godly men and Christians and people who maybe don't have a faith. And I'm using godly man as a different than Christian. I want guys to start to tune into like your confidence that you have as clearly a godly man. And I've been thinking about this more and more. It's like I can't talk about fatherhood. I can't talk about family, just principle based. If there's no anchor that we're tying to, which is our faith, like it's all just kind of like fake shenanigans, as trying to be everything to everyone and being nothing to anyone.
Yeah, so good.
And when I hear a man like yourself, not ego, but confident, wrestling, and engaged, to me, I go, this man knows who he is. And that's my big message, is like, I want men to know who they are, which I would say child of God and king in God's kingdom. Okay. How do you know who you are? Like, I feel as though you clearly know who you are and you're operating out of a foundational identity. Would you say that's true?
I'd say that's more true now than it's ever been.
Good answer. So how has that shift happened?
Well, I think that you get to a place where you look at your life and you say, look what I've created. And if you're not happy with it, like at some point things have to change. So I did a lot of things by my own will for a long time. Like I found places where I was like, oh, I can be successful here by my own will. I can step in and, make this happen or manipulate the situation or whatever it might be. And I lived in that life for a while. And there was a lot of emptiness and brokenness. And when I started really surrendering my authority to the Lord, there's a confidence in that. And it's the same confidence that I want my kids to feel like, hey, my dad's got my back. No matter what happens in the situation, right, wrong, or indifferent, my dad's got my back. I think, man, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I started to step into my dad's got my back, And so there's not a time where I speak where I feel more confident than when I'm speaking to what the Lord's done in my life, because it's not me, it's not anything that I've achieved or created. It's a calling on my life that I've stepped into, and that takes effort. That's a tough subject to cover.
Yep. Nope. I get it. I dig your clarification on it, right? Because you're saying I surrender authority and I surrender authority and this is the word. I stepped into the calling. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Every single one of you listening right now is called by God. Just hands down. Like you're his kid. Yep. You were made by him. It's like if one of my 5 kids wanders away, I will forever be wanting them to come back. I will forever be looking for them. And even if it's not wanders away, they go away because whatever, they decide they don't want to call me dad anymore. I will still want them, 100%. Right? I'm still calling for them, but we get free will, we get choice.
Yep.
And I love the thing is I stepped into the calling, which is the same thing as saying I stepped into who I was created to be, that perfect man. And then I give authority, but then it takes effort, right? Yeah. And so you're saying, and like you just said, it's hard to explain, but you still have to take action.
Yes, and it's still hard to take action. Like even now, even with the confidence of who my dad is, like it's still a grind. And I'll say every single day to process through the decisions that I'm going to make, and how I'm going to respond to certain situations. Like my kids still slam the door in my house. I still feel my heart beat a couple of times, but it's like at the same time, it's like I'm practicing being who I'm called to be, which is a loving and patient father. It doesn't mean I don't address it. It doesn't mean that I don't say once again to my kids, hey, just want to remind you, we don't slam doors in this house. But I'm not losing my mind. I'm not throwing stuff across the room. I'm trying to step into who I think God's called me to be as a father.
Yeah, man. What's something you've learned about yourself in being a dad?
Wow. That's a great question. I think when fathers become fathers, they understand how much God truly loves us. And so, there's nothing that would come between me and my kids. Like, I'll just be really transparent with you. And to think that my Heavenly Father feels the same way about me is like, it makes me emotional, honestly. So I think that, my kids have taught me a million things, but when I really take a moment and say, like, what's the biggest thing? That father-child relationship, that thing inside of me that burns for those children, to know that my Heavenly Father feels that 100 times is like, that's the good stuff,
Yeah. Bryan, when your kids are 18, 19, 20, and they're leaving your home to kind of go start their path, their journey, their things, what are the 2 or 3 things that you want them to know, or believe, or see in themselves as they step out into the world?
Well, first and foremost, it's just a relationship with the Lord. Like if I instill anything in my kids, it's that they have a Heavenly Father that they can talk to, like
Mm-hmm.
you and I are talking right now, have the same
Yeah.
type of conversation and dialogue, and someone that they can always go to process, to find the answers, to, work through whatever the situation might be. Like I want my kids to have an active conversation with the Lord. That's important to me. Behind that, I hope they know their dad, their earthly father will always have their back, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
a phone call away, no matter what, anytime. And third would be that I love their mom really well.
Mm.
I want them to know,
That's good, bro.
despite any of the mistakes that I've made, despite the selfish things that I've done, the areas that I've failed in, when they're walking out of the house, I hope they say, man, my dad really loved my mom well.
Man. Mm. What a gift to give your kids, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I think that, and you kind of alluded to it just now, but you and I will always be a phone call away for our kids, right?
Yeah.
And also, we'll probably let our kids down at some point.
Guaranteed.
And I think if fathers knew, like this could make me cry, if fathers knew, like our big thing, our big opportunity is to love our kids well, but to also let them see that we're human and point them to their father.
Yeah.
I think that's why so many people struggle with their identity now is they are expecting it to come from their human father, which their human father probably let them down. There's so many dads who just haven't done well.
Yeah.
But nobody's pointing them to like their ultimate creator. So there's like such a hole in people to know who they are. And so that's why you have all this breakdown of family and breakdown of identity. But you said it perfectly. I mean, our job is to love our kids with all of us, but also let them see like I messed up. And I've been thinking about this too lately. Like I'm really not that far ahead of my 18-year-old, right? Like I'm 40 and she's 18. Like I have 22 years on her. Like I'm not that. Dude, my 14-year-old daughter, who I train with almost every day, we're driving to the gym and she asks me a question and then she goes, wait a second, why am I asking you? I almost know more than you. Like she just giving me crap, but she's kind of also not wrong.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think that we try to have those relationships, like our kids are teens now, so it's kind of fun to figure out life together.
Mm.
What is a way that you love your wife well and your kids see it?
Well, I'll tell you what, one of my love languages is gifts. I love surprising my wife. And I kind of know after this many years, I know the things that'll really stir her heart. And I try to make sure that my kids get to see that. I try to make sure that that they're in the room or they get to experience that and see their mom's reaction because it's real and it's raw and it's like I'm excited. I've always been excited to get my wife's stuff, and like I said, usually it's the small things, sentimental things, or things that I found that have a specific meaning to her. But man, when I get to do that for my wife and my kids get to see it, they get as excited as I do. Like they get as pumped as I do about how happy their mom is in the situation. And so letting my kids see how I'm trying to serve my wife and meet the needs that I know she has. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing for dads to show their kids. I think it's a really healthy thing.
Dude, it's so important for your sons and your daughter to see that. Do you have a good relationship with your dad, Bryan?
I did. Yeah. He passed away a few years ago, to maybe 10 years ago now. But yeah, man, he was my hero, man. He was a great guy.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. What was his name?
Bryan Crow, Sr.
Bryan Crow. What a cool name. What's something when you think about your dad and you're able to say my dad was a hero to me? What's something he did that you just loved about him?
Man, it's so funny you asked this. Yesterday, I think I was talking to my sister about this. So my dad installed in all of our kids this excitement for other people. So like my dad was always like, you'd tell him like, hey, I'm yo, I'm going to go get a new car or something, or used car. I'm going to go build a deck. And he would just be like, tell me about it. So pumped, so excited. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone always wanted to come to my dad with either good news or bad news, because he was the type of guy that would he was in it with you, whether it was sad, whether it was happy, he was just in it with you all the time. And man, it just as a family, that's what we do. And that's how we honor his legacy. We dive in, we get excited with people. I want to hear what you're doing. I want to be praying with you about it. I want to be engaged, good, bad, or indifferent. Maybe it's the hardest day, or maybe it's your best day. I just want to be in it with you. So I saw that in him with everybody all the time, strangers, whoever it might be. And I think the Lord's really mirrored that in my life.
I want to pause on that for a moment, and I want guys to think, because I wrote this one down, in it with you. So imagine it's it's somebody's reading your eulogy or whatever. What do you want to be said about you? And whatever it is that you want said about you, are you operating as that man today? Or are you just hoping that you'll be less busy next year and then you can?
Yeah.
I mean, probably not. Bryan, what's something that you say, and when you say it, you're like, gosh, my dad would say that when I was a kid or a teenager, and I hated it, and now I say it.
Yeah. My dad used to, I can actually still hear his voice yelling it. He'd say, knock it off, when I was doing something silly or whatever it might be, and it was like one of those, I knew it was about to get serious. That was my last and final warning when I got the knock it off. So, sometimes with my kids, I'll do that, after I've tried the patience, I've tried the calm, that's the warning shot. And then I'm like, oh man, I kind of cringe, oh, I got to keep that one locked away.
Because it's like the tone and everything, right? It's all just on point.
Yeah, it's like military sergeant, this is last and final. So,
Yeah. You could skip this question, but is there anything that you wish your dad would have done differently?
Yeah. I'm an open book, and so I like these types of questions. So my dad struggled with alcohol his entire life. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to escape it. And so it played a major role in the last few years of his life. And it was really hard to watch that whole process go on. So, I prayed for years that burden be taken from him. I think that as a son, watching your dad go through that type of stuff and losing himself to something, you ask yourself the questions like, why can't he just stop? Or why can't he just give it up? Or am I not enough? Or, just all those questions that come to your mind. And the reality is we each have our own battles to fight. And until we invite God into those battles, I don't know that they're winnable. I don't know that you can win a battle until you're willing to just accept the Lord into that situation, no matter how bad it is. And so my dad was an amazing man of God, but I don't know that he ever brought the Lord into that situation completely. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Thanks for sharing. And then something so freaking cool is when your kids are asked that question at 37, their answer is not going to be the same as yours.
Yeah.
Right? Because you kicked that for the family.
Yeah, that veil's been torn, man. That curse is broken, and it's all God. I can't even I could go into depths and tell you the whole story, but it's all God.
Yeah. And dude, I mean, what you're saying is powerful, because I know there's men listening to this right now who are ashamed about whatever it is that's holding them back, and that they have tried to kick pornography or alcoholism, or you name whatever it is. And dads, put yourself in this position right now. If your kid came to you at 16, at 26, 36, whatever, they come to you and they're like, Dad, I've been struggling with X for 10 years. All of you would go, oh my gosh, I wish you would have invited me in to help you 10 years ago. I'm for you. I'm for you. You don't have to be ashamed about this with me.
Yeah.
And now, dads, you're all nodding your head like 100%. My kid could come to me with anything and I would be with them. So if that's the case and your Heavenly Father loves you more than you can love your own kid, then you have to listen to what Bryan said. He said, until we invite God in, we're not going to kick it. It's not going to happen until you invite him in. You weren't meant to do this alone. And your Heavenly Father is not pissed off at you because you're an alcoholic or
Yep.
whatever it is. He's
Yep.
not like, you're not out because of it. You don't have to kick it on your own. Dude, Bryan, so good. Now,
Man.
this podcast is Fatherhood Field Notes. We're doing it. I mean, just opening up the
I
journal,
love it.
opening up the
So
field
good.
notes, sharing.
Yeah.
The mantra behind it is rebel and create.
Yeah.
Because as men, we're fighters, dude. Like, we're fierce, to use your word.
Yeah.
But we don't want to just go tear something down just to be destructive. We want to build something beautiful in its place because we're creators, right?
Yeah.
So what's something you're rebelling against, and what's something you hope to create out of that rebellion?
For me, it's laziness, man. I rebel against laziness. I am not a stagnant person. I'm a get up and get after it kind of guy. And so I try to, it's funny with young kids because that's not the mentality, I think that's a learned trait. But man, I think there's a stagnance in, I don't know. I am going to say that actually. I think there's a stagnance in men nowadays. I
Yeah.
think there's a settling. I think that there's a, I I worked my 8 or 10 hour day and now I get to relax. And I am that guy that says, like, no, that's not who I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be leaning in. That doesn't mean that I don't rest, by the way. That's not like, this isn't unhealthy, but I'm also not going to take plays off. I'm not going to sit on the bench. Like, I'm in the game. I'm ready
Yeah.
to play. And I hope my kids see that, and I hope they're proud. Like I'm going to come home from the workday and I'm going to do the dishes, or I'm going to make dinner, or I'm going to go clean my room or fold laundry. Like, I want to be engaged and active in my house. I want to be engaged and active in work. Like, I, I, I am I fully rebel from that laziness, that stagnant
Mm-hmm.
attitude. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. It's like, I'm going to go to work so that I can go home and be with my family. Like,
Yeah.
this is secondary to
Yeah.
me getting to go be with my family. And so I want to reserve energy. I want to be ready. I want to go be
Yes.
in the game. Uh, I love it, man. Before I ask you my final question, which I'm sad to do, I've loved our time together. Is there anything I missed, or anything pressing on your mind or heart that you would share with dads, or with dudes struggling with alcohol, or anything that we missed that you or struggling with their weight that you would share before I ask my last question?
Well, I think I would go here. I would tell anybody that's listening to this, if you feel any form of conviction, that's not the point. Like,
Hmm.
that's not where we're going here. If you're like, oh, now I just feel bad for how I'm acting, that's not it at all. I can speak to these things because I've been in each one of these situations.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to make a choice. So there's no condemnation. That's not who we are as believers. It's more of, when are you going to be ready to step into that calling? And what's it going to take to get you there? I told you it took me like group fitness. I had to have other people there beside me, pulling me along the
Yeah.
way. With alcohol, it took me literally willing to give it to God and invite Him into that and say, "This is yours now." So, like, I don't want anyone to feel condemned. I don't want anyone to feel like, this is, hey, you're not doing enough. In fact, you're probably
Hmm.
doing too much.
Hmm.
That's really
Yeah.
probably what it
Good.
comes down to. So, step into it. Let the Lord into it and be willing to walk forward. That's really what it comes down to.
Love it. Love it. All right, my friend. My last question is a legacy question. Uh, and I typically ask, what do you want to see playing out in your kids' homes? You can
Mm,
answer that if you want to, but I did ask already, like, what do you want your kids to know when they move out of the house?
yeah.
So I'm going to ask the legacy question this way. What type of grandfather do you want to be?
Mm, mm. Um, that's such a good question. I hear every once in a while, and it's pretty rare. but I hear from men every once in a while, like, hey, my grandpa was the guy that I went to with my porn issues. My grandpa was the guy that I went to when I, had a few too many beers and hopped in my truck the first time. Like, my grandpa was the guy that I was willing to go to because I knew that he could handle those conversations, and it wasn't like I was just going to get nuked,
Yeah.
I hope I have the opportunity to be that grandpa where people will step in, my grandkids or even whoever will step into a room and say, hey, I know you don't really judge anybody. I just want to get this off my chest. So yeah, I pray for that.
Man, as you're saying it, right? Like you're processing it as you're saying it. And what I'm hearing on my end is like a lot of us, what are we looking for when we're looking? Like many of us aren't even asking that question, right? Like, oh, well, I have a 3-year-old at home. I haven't really thought about being a grandpa. But the like at 37 and at 40, I mean, dude, I'm buying shoes and freaking Costco is stealing my paychecks. Like Target is the $100 store. So there's like this other level of things that you and I have to consider.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think when we think about the idea of empty nester or grandkids or whatever, it's like, oh, freedom and 65 and retirement and golf, which all sounds utterly horrible to me. Oh, you say awesome. But yes, for sure, not having the same burdens you and I have right now.
Yeah.
But what if we were to consider, and I wrote this down, how do I position myself to be that grandfather that is in it with you, which is something you said about your father, right? How do I position myself? And one of those things is kicking those habits, right? So that we can be there one day, be healthy one day. Dude, I don't know what the commercial was for. And this incredible commercial, like the whole thing is this grandpa hiding, doing this kettlebell. Have you seen this?
Nuh-uh.
Okay. It's like this grandfather, like hiding and practicing with a kettlebell. And the dude's like super old. And you're like, what the heck is this commercial about? And then at the end, it's Christmas and the grandfather's lifting up the like 4-year-old granddaughter so she can put the star on the tree. Dude, just crush, right?
So good.
But if you and I position ourselves to be that man with the ears, the eyes, the space, and the patience, and the life experience to be there for our kids, I love it.
So good.
Bryan, dude, I'm so pumped to just get to know you more, to be able to have this time with you and get to know you in a way that, most people don't just get to sit and share the deep life stuff about your dad and your life and your marriage and your kids. Dude, you're incredible and you're doing incredible things and you are going to have massive impact 500 years from now, like the work you're doing today. So keep it up, dude. Keep being yourself, keep becoming and inspiring those around you. And I'm truly honored to have had a moment to get to know you.
Well, I appreciate it so much, Ned. And I'll tell you what, you were the first, when I attended my first Ruck event, you were the first guy that stopped and had a conversation with me. So, that meant a lot to me, especially when you walk into a situation like that, where it's a bunch of guys and they're all pretty alpha males. And someone takes the time to stop and say, hey, how you doing? My name's Ned. It really had an impact on me. So right back at you, man. God's equipping you to do amazing things. And I'm pumped to get to see it.
Love it. All right, my friend. Until next time. What an incredible conversation. I mean, there were so many moments where I just felt connected. I felt like I was learning. I felt inspired. One of the things that really hit me, and maybe it's a way that sometimes I feel inadequate or insecure about, is to be direct without having to be like boisterous or a jerk, but to go, hang on a second, this isn't how this is going to go, or this is how this is going to go, and this is how our family's going to show up. Like, to be direct, and not from a place of arrogance, but from a place of confidence, something that I'm going to be continuously working on as a husband, father, man. Now, we talked about a couple things. I want to make mention. Rise Up Kings, incredible. If you are looking to just have a boot camp 3-day inspiration to really understand who you are, go check out Rise Up Kings. And then if you're trying to get your fitness together and you haven't found the right way to do it, I am leading Rise Up Kings Fitness and would love to have a conversation with you about that. So riseupkingsfitness.com. All right, my dudes. If these conversations are helpful, if you're enjoying them, if they're inspiring you, one, write a review, and two, send a link to a friend. Say, hey, yo, dude, you're a great dad, and I wanted to share this with you, this inspiring story. I think you'd really like it. You guys, we have to, one, lift each other up, and two, we have to invest in each other, and this is a great way to do so. Thank you to all you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes Podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your kids, your spouse, and community needs. This is your guide, Ned Shout. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact. And let's create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next week.